Hello friends, in today's session we'll be talking about functions. So let's begin. So majorly you can categorize functions in two types. One is inbuilt function and second are user defined functions. So let's have a look to one of the inbuilt functions. So I'm just defining a list here and that list contains few random numbers. And I need to find the maximum number out of the list. So we do have a function, and the function name is max, and then you can pass the list. Okay, so let me use this with a print statement. Print max out of my list. Let me right click, execute, and you're gonna see the output here, 56. So out of these four number, maximum number is 56. Let me use another inbuilt function, and that is length. This time we're going to calculate the length of the list. Len my list, again print should be in parentheses, so I'm going to put that, and I'll just add one more number so that 11 and write me click run. So maximum number out of list is 56 and length of my list is 5. 1 2 3 4 5, right? So this is how the inbuilt functions work. Now we can build our own functions, and that most of the time we do. We use the existing one and we build a new one. So how we can write our own function? So to write our own function, let me comment these two lines. Hash, hash. If you need to write your own function, so here we go. The keyword to define function or write function is def. After def, you need to give a function name. Let me give a function name as closing test, and you need to give a bracket, and at the end of the line you should put this. Now this is a function name is closing test. I entered, and then I'm just printing something. Execution completed successfully. So this is how you basically define it has two parts. The first part is where you're defining a function. Now you have already defined the function. Now you are supposed to use that. So use the function, you just need to give the name, closing test, and then that. Let me right click and run. So you can see a message is printed here, execution completed successfully. So to use a function, that must be defined. What if I simply copy this and paste after closing test? You see already red line is underline is there. Let me. So this will not work, because when Python starts looking to the lines and when Python is trying to identify closing test, there is no definition so far yet. So it's giving you the error. Let me right click and run it. Now you see name error, name closing test is not defined. So you are using a function which is not defined yet. So you must define a function before you want to use that. It may be in some other file. We'll be talking about those things when we'll be discussing modules. But here within the same file, you have definition of function, and then you are using the function. So this is a one of the example of a function definition and how to use that. Here we'll be talking about functions with parameters. So if you are looking at screen and if you see these two functions, inbuilt functions, max and len, we are passing some values there. It means this function is accepting my list as a parameter, and then there are some steps, some calculations happening behind the scene. So similarly, as you can see on your screen, this function, there is no parameter, and whenever you execute the script, same statement will be printed all the time. So how we can pass parameter to function? So let's we have a previous right. So I just take you back to one of the previous classes where we were talking about we had a problem that amusement park allows this filtering below criteria. So if somebody matching these criteria, they are only allowed to enter into the amusement park, and we implemented that logic using these code. So let's say we need to uh, create a function. We need to design a function where we're going to pass height, weight, and age, and that function should calculate, or that function should print the permission slip, allowed or not allowed. So I'm, instead of writing, I'll just copy this from here, and I will go back to our program functions, and going to define a new function. Let me paste the code here. So define let me give the function name as permit and semicolon, and what permit should do. So permit should receive three parameters, and those parameters are height, weight, and age, and all calculations are supposed to be done based on those three parameters, and then all these operations should be performed, right? So it's the height, the weight, and the age. So I have already defined the function, and now let me call the function. And function name is permit, and height is 4, weight I'm passing 100, and age I'm passing 45. And let me execute this script. Print, right click, run. So you can see it's allowed, right? So what if I pass some value which is beyond the condition? So if weight is more than 200, so I'll make it 300 and execute, and we can see not allowed. So what we have done here, we have defined a function, and we are passing three values: height, weight, and age. And based on these three values, there is a calculation, and you have this value. Now you can write multiple, you can call this same function with multiple values: 256. Let's see what happens. 100, right click, run, and see, in first condition it's allowed, and in second condition it's not allowed, right? So this is how you can define a function. You can pass parameters, you can pass when you're calling a function, you can pass values as a parameter, and then this happens. But there is one thing, what is happening in this function, the print statement is within the function. But in real world, means we have most in normal conditions, we have these functions defined in one file, or we have a function library where all the functions are written. So what we'll do, will not print the statement here. We want this permission to be returned. Right? If I call the function, I should have this print permission outside, right? So this is one example. What I'll be doing instead of print, let's do something else. And what is that? Return permission. What now? What will happen? What's going to happen if you run this? There is no print. because we have commented the print statement. So this function is returning the permission, but how to receive that? To receive that, either you can use like this, print permit, we're passing values, let me run, allowed, print, permit, right click, allow, right? So what is happening? You have a print statement, and then you are calling a function with these value, and whatever is return means whatever the value of permission is returned here, and print is printing the permission. Print is printing the permit. Okay, so this is how you can return a value to a function, and or instead of print, you can keep that in a variable. Let's say I have a temp variable and permit, and this time I'm passing 414, and then I can print temp. All right, right click, run. So in first case allowed, second case not allowed, and third case again it's allowed. So these are different ways you can receive whatever function is returning to you. All right, so here let me call another function, and you'll see a problem there. So here only. So the very first parameter is height, second is weight, and third is age. So you can, while passing the value, you cannot change the sequence. What if you are changing the sequence? Let's say if you just replace 104, so 104. So 100, we are assuming, because in real life we are not writing function with only three parameters. There might be 10, 20, and more than that. I'm just giving you random numbers. It may be in hundreds. So what if we forget the sequence? It's not easy to remember those sequences there. So now I am considering 100 as height, but my function will receive that as 100 is weight for me, but my function is receiving in a variable height, and all logic are dependent on height. So if you are changing the sequence, you're gonna get a wrong result. You're gonna get a wrong result. Even in our first attempt, it was allowed, but see what happens in second attempt. It's not allowed because 100 for me it's a weight, but for a function it's a height, and it's out of the range, right? So how to tackle these? So while passing, you can say weight equals to 100, height equals to 4, age equals to 15. So here you can change the sequence as you're specifically defining 100 should be received by weight, 4 should be received by height, and 15 should be received by age. Let me execute it, and this time it's allowed. So it's easy, right? If you give the name of the parameter you define, then you can change the sequence. Otherwise, you'll be in a big trouble, and it's when there are like 100 parameters, it's really hard to define. But what if you miss something like this? Instead of 3, you have passed less number of parameters, then you will get this. Type error, permit missing one required positional argument, age. Obviously, you'll get that information, what failed, but how to get rid of that. So this is another situation. So here you can do, while defining the function, just give default values to that. So I can assign to default values. Weight 150 and age is equals to 25. So I do have a default value to my function format, and I'm calling that with two parameters only, and this time is allowed. So what happened actually? We passed two, and the third variable was picked from the default. Third variable was picked from the, you pass only weight and height, but age was picked from the definition of the function, where we have defined age default value as 25. So what we all just talked about, we talked about user defined functions, like first inbuilt functions, user defined functions, then how to pass how you can parameterize your function, how to pass parameters, then we learn return. After that, we try to see how to pass default values to a function, and these are the things. And you can also pass a list to your function. So how we can do that? So at the beginning of this, we had one list there, right? Is it clear? Okay, let me and paste. So I have a list, and I want to create a function. I can how to pass this list to a function. Let me see this, and let me define this. Print my list is the function name column, and I want to print that for, let me see my list. Okay, my list for I in range len my list column print my list. R. So let me execute. Right. I missed this. Okay. So I defined the function, but I have not called it. So I need to call this function. Print my list, and right click, run. Print. Okay. See, I haven't passed. I have defined a function to accept a parameter, and I'm not passing. Okay. Now you can see printing the list. So you can pass the whole list to as a parameter to a function, and you can set the elements, and you can do whatever operations you want to perform. Here I have just printed the value, but if you want, you can perform different operations. So these are few things about functions. So you can go ahead and practice this, all those different type, define a function without parameter, with parameter, with returning a value, without returning a value, function with changing sequence of parameters, function with default values, default parameter values. So these are different combinations you can try with functions, and you can define your own functions. All right. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next session.